Hey everybody, my name is John Wood. I am the newly published author of A Fight to Survive, Disability Devotionals, and the soon-to-be-published author of the Wandering Wheels children's book series focused on disability. Welcome back to the Author on Wheels podcast. Today we don't have an interview, but I did do an interview on my buddy Daryl Perry's podcast, and I would like you to listen to the footage from that interview. So, thanks for listening and enjoy. And to first off say, for those who do not know, my name is John, and I am literally a medical miracle. I was born 2 weeks early on the 14th of May, 1994. I don't know why I said 2094. I was born May 14th, 1994, in a little town in Florida called Pensacola. Many of y'all have probably known. I was born with spina bifida, and I was born with type 3 spina bifida, which is the type is called myelomeningocele, meaning in the Latin split spine. I was born with hydrocephalus, water on the brain, and several other anomalies, and I basically from moment one fought to survive. And that's exactly what I talk about in my first book titled A Fight to Survive, that is out right now. And from moment one, I would say that literally I only had 2 hours to live. They said I was only going to be alive 2 hours and then I would die. Well, doctors are wrong. As I even quote it, doctors are liars. I'm here writing this, or as I said, I'm alive enough to write this the idea for this damn book. But
Well, and and the thing is, so you have a very important start here, which is literally you could have died in some arguments that they would have made, even though
yep,
doctors are definitely wrong. They probably said you should have died. And I think when you have a story like that, like when that's where you start, I mean, everything else is kind of like a bonus, and from there, it's in a sense where you look at it and you're like, well, you know what, like I'm going to make the best out of everything I can in this situation, and that's exactly kind of what you're doing anyway.
yes.
But yeah, I'm sorry. So we went through birth. Let's talk a little bit about like childhood and just kind of your makeup and why you process things the way you do.
From I would say the age of 3 until literally this second, I have continued fighting, and although I've been through so much, Daryl, I've been through what normal people would call hell on earth. And
Yeah.
I would literally say it has been hell on earth at some points. I was put into a wheelchair at age 3. Before then, I was in and out of hospitals, and I had body casts and, back surgeries and brain surgeries and all this crazy stuff. But from the moment I got mobile, basically, from the minute I found wheels, so to speak, I basically had this idea put into my head, even at a very young age, that one day I'm going to tell a story about my life. I'm going to write something about my life. I'm going to find some way to tell some story about my life and the hell that I've gone through and the pain that I've endured and the struggles that I've faced and how it has made me a better person and who I am today. So I went through that mantra for years and years and years, and I was trying to find ways of how can I tell my story? How can I, make my life seem like it's not all peaches and cream and roses and all this stuff.
Right.
And so when I was about 22 years old, I started the rough draft for my first book called A Fight to Survive. And I started it one night because, due to my disability and probably due to, everything else, I have insomnia. I very bad insomnia. So I just got on the computer and I just opened up Google Docs and just started typing what I thought was, gibberish to me. But it turned out to be parts, bits, pieces, tidbits, whatever you want to call it, of my life story. And so over the next probably 6 or 7 months, I went in and just, kept going at it and going at it. And I stopped at one point at 10 chapters because I thought, my story's over. People don't want to hear Jack. And at one point, I actually lost the manuscript. So I had to retype
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So after retyping it, I added about 12 and a half, maybe almost 13 more chapters. And then as I was looking back, I was like, I even said to myself clearly, damn, I went through this. I went through that. I lived through that. And even my mom, God rest her soul, was looking at this with me, and she said, John Miles, if you do not publish this book before I die, so help me God, I will haunt you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, so the when you first we're first writing the book in about 7 months, you did about 10 or 12 chapters. You lost that.
Yes.
I mean, basically, just in the first few minutes of us talking, I mean, you seem like once you catch something, like you want to do something, not only is it happening, but you take to it quickly and you build momentum quickly. So
Yes.
the entire first book, once you got back into rewriting the first part of it and then you added chapters onto it, how long was that process?
2.5 years. I started
Okay.
in December of 2018, and from the minute that I started to the minute that I finished, I went back and I looked at it, and it was like 2 years and like 3-4 months, something like that. But then I
Okay.
took another few months finding a publisher, and I went through. I even talk about a publishing experience in one of the chapters that went completely haywire. And so when I finally found a publisher, it was end of 2020, or no, end of 2019, mid January 2020 is when I found the publisher. And I remember because I was telling my mom, because my mom was fighting cancer at this time, and she was, you know, in the midst of passing away. I even said to Mom, I was like, Mom, I'm going to have this book published before you go home, before you leave us.
Right.
She passed away on January 13th, 2020. I got published with this first book on March 9th of that year.
Okay.
So not even 2 months after she passed away, I was a published author. And although it hurt to not know, or to know that I wasn't going to be published by the time she passed, I knew that right then I would, I'd made her happy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, because it seems like, especially at that point, I mean, she knew this was getting
Yes.
published, and as she watched you work through it and watched you, okay, yeah. So I mean that part, I mean, yeah, there's no doubt that she knew where this was headed
Mm-hmm.
and knew that it was getting published. Now, so you have the book,
Yes.
but you also you do a lot of content. You do basically you just like you're one of them that is pretty much doing a lot of the things.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about how you've also used YouTube, how you use social media. I see your messages a lot on Facebook. How does all that tie into what you do with the book?
Basically, my mantra with Author on Wheels, which is um, the business basically that I started, is along the lines of helping people tell their story. Because, as I always say, everybody has a story to tell, and it's up to them to find that way to tell their story. People tell their story through art and music and podcasting and YouTube and all this other stuff. And my mission is to help people find that pick me up, basically, to telling their story. It's not just about authors and writing your book and, let me help you do this. It's about finding, like I said, that way of telling your story.
Well, and this is something that I'm really passionate about because I feel like one, everybody has a
Yep.
story, and if you're comfortable enough to share it, you have there's so many ways to do it now, and you're basically trying to figure out what's the easiest way for you to communicate. I mean, shoot, when you break it down, people are either going to watch it, listen to it, or read it.
Exactly.
And I mean, you have so many different avenues. And to your point, I mean, I love that you went the published book route,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have to go that way either. I mean,
Right.
you can tell your story on Facebook, you can do the podcast, and I mean, you can do all of this stuff. So I think it's good that you're basically encouraging people to be storytellers. And when you do that, the amplification overall, because it's like if one person that you work with decides that they're going to tell their story, and then somebody that you know is inspired by their story. Like just the amplification. I mean, you're helping people do things that are going to help other people. So you, in turn, are just helping so many people. I love that. I that's fantastic.
Thank you, Daryl.
Yeah, yeah. So where do you? Because I mean, you're still. I mean, you're very focused on what you're doing.
Yes.
You have a lot of platforms. You've got a lot of things that you have going on right now. Where do you see this going for the rest of your life? Like lifelong mission on this stuff.
Lifelong mission. I even I was talking about this with my sister on a phone call we had a couple days ago, and she's seen everything that Author on Wheels has been doing, and I've had friends that have messaged me and said, "Hey, I have visions about you doing this, this, and this. You have this big house, this big van you're driving. You're publishing Author on Wheels up, on everything. You got all these giant billboards." I basically see myself to boil it all down, I see myself not letting it go to my head, but living a modest, life of an author on wheels. I don't do it necessarily for the fame or the money or the books or, the fancy houses
Sure.
or any of that crazy stuff.
Sure.
I do it because
Sure.
I like to help people tell their story. And I believe exactly that God put me on this earth to do this.
Yeah, and the intent is so much because there's a lot of folks from the outside that will see. We'll put this under the umbrella of content creation, either traditional or
Right.
digital. Whereas people think that it's going to be about fame and fortune, and that the amount of folks that actually get to that level, even though there are a lot of them by numbers, by the percentages, it's relatively low. But I think intent matters so much, and with you really just wanting to help people. I mean, it's fabulous if you're able to support yourself off of
Mm-hmm.
this. But again, the reason that you're wanting to do it is to help people. And I think just with so much noise out around this kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
that, what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it really shines through. So that's excellent. And I mean, I think that's the right perspective to have. And it sounds like, I mean, as you said, you've been put here to do this and you're going to
Yes.
stay humble and you're just going to do it. So
Yes.
that's wonderful.
And well, go ahead.
Well, the question I had was with the podcast in particular.
Yes.
When did you get the idea to do that, and how has that process been from a creative standpoint? How has that been for you?
How did you cut out? I'm sorry.
Sure, sure. So you have your podcast. How long did it take you to decide, okay, I'm going to do a podcast as well? And then secondly, how is that creative process of getting your content ready for a podcast different than your writing? The book's going to be completely different anyway, but like just compared to your other content, how do you prepare for a podcast?
When I have a podcast when I do an Author on Wheels podcast, what I do is I have the pre-interview with the client, with the guest, and I basically go in and I ask them, how their story is, how their story is affecting others, how it affects them, where others can read or, find this story, read more about the author itself. And I go along that avenue. And then when I go into the podcast, the one thing that I tell the viewers or the listeners as well as my guests on live is I tell them that they are allowed to be as open and honest as possible about their journey, their publishing, and how their story has affected them as well as other people. And I go along the lines of, just like I said earlier, everyone has a story to tell, and I want those folks that are on to be able to tell their story however they need to. So
Perfect. Perfect. So basically, with your podcast, if somebody's coming on, it is a platform for them to kind of use as a springboard to start telling their story.
yes.
It's a first place for them to share. Okay, very good. Very good. So is there a type of avenue that you're not using yet that you're thinking about, that you're kind of interested in jumping into? Because there's a lot of new, you hear a lot of things now about, like, I know Clubhouse is new. I know as far as social media, a lot of folks are jumping on TikTok. Is there a place where you're looking to either start to put out more of your message, or maybe place where you already are, but you're trying to think about, okay, how can I do this differently?
Right.
Or how can I ramp things up?
That's a funny question, Daryl. I was on TikTok for about a week, and then I said, "Screw it. This is bull. This is just bull."
Yeah.
I only posted one thing on there, and I deleted it the next day. And so, not really looking to go on TikTok. I toyed around with the aspect of a radio station, a radio show, maybe, kind of like Tylea Flores is doing.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't have the right equipment for that. I'm literally talking to you via iPhone right now, which I love my iPhone 11. I wish I had an Apple computer that I could just, type on and, do stuff from there. I wish I had a better setup for a studio to do a podcast, like professionally and all that, or even a radio show. But as far as avenues, I'm happy with us being on Facebook, on YouTube, and having our own website now that we just rebranded our website. And that's, as long as we get our message out there, it doesn't matter what platform we're on, as long as we're spreading a message of, hey, we're here to let you tell your story however you want.
Yeah, and I think, going back to audio and having the radio show, I think now, I mean, even though there's always going to be a need for different platforms, it's kind of like podcasting is something that is becoming more and more mainstream. Right. Even if people aren't familiar with it, they have iTunes, they have Spotify. Yes. And what's interesting with Anchor is I think you're starting to see a bit of a shift. And I actually think that this type of format for podcasting really lends itself to somebody that's coming out to try to share their story for the first time, because I mean, they literally can pull their phone out while they're driving to work or while they're at home, just doing their day-to-day stuff, and they can start telling their story.
Yep.
And it can almost be like an audio blog. And I just, because I had the same thought too when I started doing this, is I want to have more of a setup. I would like to have, for us in our house, like we've got an unfinished, we have a basement that we're trying to figure out how we're going to finish. And of course the urge is always to get it, like, let's build a full studio. Yep. But then it's like, what exactly, yes, the sound quality would be better. Mm-hmm. But I also, because I remember when podcasting was like, 10 or 12 years ago, when you would listen to podcasts and the audio quality was what it was, at least, which was like you were in a wind tunnel somewhere. But like, at least if you're having these conversations on Anchor, I mean, the quality is still very, very
yep.
good. And the reason that I bring this up when we're talking about more production in a podcast is I've talked to a lot of people that are like, hey, I want to, like, I have a story to share. I want to do a podcast, but I don't have the equipment. And I think I've always been of the belief of just start. And then eventually, as you go along, if you decide you want to get more production, which is kind of what you're talking about, you can absolutely do it. But I think there's a whole other segment of people out there that have a story to tell, but they're in their own head. Like, I need this, I need this setup, I need this laptop. Mm-hmm. So, I think just starting is kind of the biggest thing.
Exactly. All right.
So, yeah. So now we've talked about what you're seeing as kind of the lifelong goal on this. We've talked about the platforms that you're on currently. Is there something that since you've started this, have you gone into a direction that maybe you didn't see? I mean, everything you're saying here, you've been very laser focused on, and it's kind of come together. And when it's looked appropriate to kind of branch out, you've branched out. Has there really been anything that's kind of surprised you since you started doing all of this?
How far the message of Author on Wheels has been able to be reached? We've been able to, with our team over on our website as well as on our Facebook page, we actually brought on a gentleman named Doug, who is very laser focused on, computers and helping us. So we brought him in. I honestly, I just brought him in to see if he could, revamp our website and give us a new URL. So he did that,
Yeah.
and then he said, hey, let me do this, this, and this for you. So far, we let him have control of our Facebook page for Author on Wheels, and he's allowed Author on Wheels' message to be spread off through not just the United States. We're available, we're getting our message spread in Mexico. I believe it's in, oh goodness, Mexico, Australia, and a couple of other countries that have been able to be affected by what Author on Wheels is doing. We've had people comment on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page. I've had private messages from people saying, hey, I found your page, through an ad. I'm, happy to see what you're doing. How can I get in touch? And all this stuff. And I'm honestly blown away because in probably a week of having an ad up on Facebook trying to get more website clicks, we have been able to reach over 11,000 people just in a week through having one ad for website clicks. And to me, that blows me away because I see the support that people are giving, and I look and the numbers keep rising, and I never expected Author on Wheels to get off the ground. I never expected it.
Yeah.
So it just blows me away to know that people are being affected by the story that Author on Wheels gives.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because this, when you say that you never expected it to take off in the way that it has, I think that also speaks to kind of the intent. Like almost like you're looking at this as I have a story to share. If it was almost like you were thinking, if it helps a few people, great. But now it's just, again, kind of like another major bonus because you are getting the amplification. You are running some ads behind it, which, again, it's almost like having a major billboard on the internet because you've got this laser targeted and it's getting in front of folks worldwide. So, but I think that's it almost sounds like you're putting this out, you're hoping that it helps people, but you have zero real expectations, which is good in a sense because you're basically minimizing the frustration if something doesn't work out. But by the same token, when something works out the way that this has, then it's just I mean you're blown away by the success of it. Now with your team, how long were you doing this before you assembled a team, and how big is your team right now?
I was doing this. I made a website on Wix all by myself, and I put together what I thought was a good, theme and whatnot. And I make my own audio, or not audio, my own, photos. I created the covers for all my books. So I was able to put the photos on the website, and I was able to link some of our social media up onto Wix. And, I started posting blogs on there. But I kind of decided I wanted, to do more. And so I had a few friends, spread throughout, people that I know that, are, computer savvy and, social media freaks and, crazy, just crazy awesome people that know what they're doing. So I brought in my buddy Sarah. My friend Sarah is she's really good into computers. So I added her into my website and I said, hey, can you, check out this, and this, and this. And my cat just knocked over something and scared the bejesus out of me. Anyway. But she went in and she was like, yeah, this can be fixed, that can be fixed, that can be fixed, click, 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 click. And she did it. So I was like, hey, do you want to do this on a volunteer basis? And, all my people are volunteers. I can't pay people, but all my friends are, volunteers. So my friend Sarah does our technology. She handles our website partially. And then I brought in a couple of other people who have helped out and, kind of are advertisers for us. My friends Sean and Karen, who live in Minnesota, they advertise for us via Facebook and other, social media like that. And they're also two of my moderators for our Facebook live streams that we do. So they help out very well. But as far as, like getting the message out there, that's all on me. It's good to have the support,
Uh-huh.
but also the main person that's helped get our website off the ground is my friend Doug Hansen, who actually owns his own Digital Creations Incorporated. That's the name. It's his own media company. He creates websites for businesses and so forth. So I had him take a crack at our website, and he optimized our website. He got us a bunch of views. He boosted everything. He did everything off the top of his head that he knew how to do, and I thank him for it because he's allowed Author on Wheels to be boosted in so many different ways. So if anyone out there on my team is listening to this, thank you for everything that you've done.
I think the other thing that's important to point out with this is that relationships are so important when you're trying to get a message out. A lot of times when folks start, and as you said, yes, at the end of the day, it is up to you to go out and
Yes.
spread this. However, the people that and the skills that they have, they're willing to do what they can do to make sure that everything is set up to where you can
Yes.
go out there, and they're helping amplify this as well. And I think that's kind of it's a very important piece to actually just ask the people that have these types of skills. And honestly, a lot of times, like if you tell your friends and acquaintances what it is you're working on and why, once they hear why you're doing this stuff, they may just volunteer to do it anyway. So yeah, you have basically a network of volunteers that help you with some of the stuff on the technical side, that do a little bit of your light promotion. No, I think this is huge, because I think a lot of people just think that it has to be just them. And while yes, you're the face of it, there are some folks behind the scenes that are helping you out as well. So, as we're starting to wrap up here, John, what is I've got your site, I've got your Facebook page linked up in the show notes, as we mentioned in the intro, guys. But what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you if they want to possibly come on and share their story on your podcast?
If you'd like to get on the Author on Wheels podcast, if you have a story that you feel that is necessary to bring onto a public or bring to public, please don't hesitate to contact me via Facebook. You can look me up, message the Author on Wheels Facebook page, or you can contact me through my website, www.authoronwheels.com. And I'm also personally available on Facebook. I'm also available on Instagram and Twitter. And you can also subscribe to the Author on Wheels YouTube channel, which is just Author on Wheels. And you can also send me a private email at fighttosurviveauthor@gmail.com. That's the main way to get in touch with me about the podcast. In the email, if you put Author on Wheels podcast in the subject, I will definitely read it, and I will be able to get back to you much more efficiently.
Perfect. So, all right. Well, with that, guys, we are going to go ahead and wrap up. And John, anytime that you want to come on and just give an update on what it is that you're doing, maybe even showcase some of the folks that you've had on, kind of give them some shout outs as well on the podcast. You're always welcome to come back, but I appreciate you coming on with me this evening, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you very much, Daryl. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye.